Hey, what's up? Haven't done a video in a while, and something that comes up all the time when researching nutrition or talking about nutrition in any way or fashion is kind of this two-party system. You're either, and of course there's scale and there's variables in between, but it comes basically down to you're either in the group that's about calorie deficit, calories in versus calories out, low fat, healthy carbs, those type of people, overeating, undereating, exercise, that calories in, calories out. And then the other party is low carbs, high fat, don't count calories. There's no need if you monitor your carb and fat intake. And that's kind of all that's really a part of that party. Of course, there's more details. Typically, the low carb is also going to believe in intense, shorter workouts. So rather than drawn out aerobic training in the mid-intensity levels for long periods of time, they're going to err on the side of hard, fast, get it done, make it very difficult, and make it quick. And then the calories in, calories out side is more aerobic, mid-range exercise, minimum 45 minutes a day, but very often you'll see, take a jog, take a run. The more you do, the better, because you'll spend more calories and therefore you'll burn fat. And the more research you do, the deeper the rabbit hole gets, like with most things. And so even though it can be very obvious, it just depends what you grew up being told, or it depends where you got your information. Because if you get your nutrition information from corporate funded entities, you got to see where this funding came from and what their position is on industrial food or whatever it might be. So you just got to keep looking behind the curtain repeatedly to see, am I getting good information, am I getting honest information? And the less scientific your personal background is, the harder it is to decipher that information, because it just gets confusing. There's a lot of jargon. You have to read clinical studies, and if you don't know how to read those, it's just confusing as all heck. And for the vast majority of people, it's basically a waste of time. Even though the subject matter is important, and it does matter, the time it would take to figure out how to learn about these things is wasted versus listening to someone who knows what they're talking about. And of course, there's those parties, those ends of the spectrum that there's going to be equally smart-sounding people on each side. So it's hard. But what I've come to see and come to realize myself, now I'm in that side of low carb, high fat. So full disclosure, I'm not in the calories in, calories out side, and again, I have my research to back what I believe that I've come across, and literature and all these things, and getting into that is a whole nother thing. The point of this is to simplify it. For most people, it can be a lot easier, and all I suggest to I do myself sometimes when I get too deep in the situation, or to clients or anything like that, is sometimes just step back, take a bird's eye view of the situation, look at everything, okay, and assess what the dummy's view of the situation would be. If aliens came down to earth and glanced at the habits of humans and they were curious about nutrition, or if you're explaining it to a 9 or 10-year-old and you're avoiding getting too scientific and you just basically want to say, and you want proof. If you step back in the nutrition realm and you look at how much, at least in America, let's say, because that's the only one I personally know very well, how many people know about the calories argument? How many people have heard about exercise more, expend more calories through exercise than you take in, and you'll lose weight? How many people know that you need to avoid fat and know that low fat is better? How many people understand that as fact? They've seen the food pyramid. I would say pretty safe bet to say 100% of people that can read and write and listen have heard that argument. And of the people who are overweight and concerned with that, I would say, again, it's a relatively safe bet to say every single person knows that point of view. So if everybody knows that point of view, or let's just say 90% for sake of being fair, if all these people understand this point of view, and there's a growing percentage of the population that's fat or obese, if you want to call it that, at risk for heart disease, or already on the path of heart disease, dealing with heart disease, dealing with diabetes or pre-diabetic, mental disorders, depression, anxiety, OCD, Alzheimer's, all the metabolic syndrome. If you look into that, it's kind of that whole area. Even cancer, more and more research is backing that it can be strongly affected nutritionally. So all these people who are at risk, which is a growing percentage, they've heard of the calories argument. They've heard of the exercise versus food amounts argument. How many of them would you guess have tried it? And how many of you would you guess have succeeded versus how many have failed? Bird's eye view, looking in, if you say, okay, all these people who are increasingly sick, increasingly fat, increasingly immobile, increasingly injured, are aware of the calories in, calories out argument, and they've either tried it or they've just ignored it, which is what a lot of people they'll say they did it wrong instead of admitting maybe it doesn't work. So you say all these people know about it, and very, very, very few in relation to the amount that know about calories know about that you should have a lot of fat, that carbohydrates are the real problem, sugar is a real problem. The amount of people that are aware of this low carb, high fat argument versus the amount of people that are aware of this calories in versus calories out argument. Okay, take those numbers and then decide how many of them have tried either of these ends of the spectrum. And then look at how many of those people are still obese, at risk for heart disease, or currently experiencing heart disease, diabetic, pre-diabetic, and high in cancer, injury riddled, on and on and on. Bird's eye view, I always say that if the common knowledge in this country, which has been low fat, calories in, calories out, exercise more, the common knowledge, if it was correct, would we still be getting sicker and fatter? I would think not, because everybody knows this idea. Everybody's aware of it. So when everybody who's getting fat is getting fat, the first thing they're going to think about is, I got to drop my calories. I got to diet on these low calories, all these things, and I got to exercise more. I got to do all these things. I got to jog. I got to ride my bike for 2 hours a day. All these things. That's the first move. Everybody's going to try that, and if that was working, would we be in this scenario? Would we be getting fatter, sicker, and so on? Would our hospitals be just packed with more and more metabolic syndrome patients? Or could we say, bird's eye view, that maybe there's something else that needs to happen? Maybe we should try something different. So the aliens come in, they say, oh, everybody knows this, but everybody is increasingly sick and fat, maybe they should try something else. It's just that common assessment without getting into the nitty-gritties of it. Hormones and sleep numbers and all these things. You can get into all the cellular interaction with all. Step back from all that and just look at it how it is. If this argument and this argument are the prominent arguments, this one being calories in, calories out, is by far more prominent. Everybody knows about it. Fewer people know about this. The people who have tried this, how are they doing? The people who have tried this, how are they doing? Bird's eye view. You don't need a lab all the time to form some kind of, not even an opinion, but an idea or a possibility. Probability idea. Okay, so bird's eye view, you look at that and then you say, okay, I want to try one or the other and pick one. Of course, I believe you're going to see very few successful calories in, calories out practitioners or people involved in that, and you're going to see a lot more success on lowering carbohydrate intake, lowering sugar intake, increasing fat intake. And of course, within that, you got to make the right choices in food. If you did low calories and you did the perfect food groups, well then yeah, that looks fine, but what's the real reason behind it? That's another conversation. Again, aliens coming to Earth, what are they going to choose? I think the better decision is low carb, high fat. So just something to mull over. Talk to you soon.